Hello everyone. So Rolling Stone is of course known as a music magazine. It has been for many years, and they're also known for their top lists, like top 500 music artists of all time, top 500 albums of all time. Recently, Rolling Stone launched Rolling Stone Gaming, the gaming side of Rolling Stone, where they endeavor to go hands-on to preview and review the latest games with the same level of analysis brought to music and entertainment, which at times is also controversial. And so just a few weeks ago, they've released their first Star Wars gaming top list, the top 25 best Star Wars games ever made. And oh boy, this list is gonna trigger you. I honestly had so much fun going through this list just because of how ridiculous it is at times. And I think you're gonna be surprised by some of the games they completely left off this list. I guess I'll mention a bunch of those at the end of the video. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. Let me know your top 25 Star Wars games in the comments below. But we begin our list at number 25 with Star Wars Hunters, a mobile game that's also available on Nintendo Switch. It launched in 2024, and as far as I know, is actually performing quite well and has been received quite well. It's an arena shooter and is receiving consistent updates every few months. There's new content added to the game. It's free to play, which also, I guess, assists with its popularity, but that's number 25 on the list. Now, I just want to go ahead and say that even though we're only at number 25, the first on the list, the fact even Star Wars Hunters makes this list should give you an indication of where things are going. Can't wait for you to see that top 10. At number 24, we have 2002's Star Wars Bounty Hunter. This is one of my childhood favorite games. I played so much of this as a kid. I recently continued to play it and only recently finished it because it's actually a ridiculously challenging game. You got this, Django, I'm pretty sure. What the hell? I'm so glad it made the list. Number 24 though, I feel like it deserves a higher ranking than this, considering it is quite a unique Star Wars game. There's no other that's really like it. It tells the story of Jango Fett's backstory and how he came to be the clone template. Gameplay is definitely challenging. There was a recent re-release from Aspire Media, a port for modern consoles that basically remasters and upscales the game, also improves the controls because the old controls were ridiculous. Shooting me. Oh my god, I missed the platform! No! Definitely a game that deserves to be on this list. I'm not sure it sits at number 24 on my list, but here it is. At number 23, we have Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace, the movie tie-in video game from 1999. This game also was re-released in recent times and is iconic. A childhood favorite for many. It mostly follows the plot of the film with some minor differences, and the voice acting, I think, is what's most memorable in this game.
The Viceroys are cowards. This meeting will be short.
At number 22, from 1996, we have Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. Once again, a lot of OG Star Wars gamers, I think, will be pleased that this game lands on this list, even though it's in 22nd place. You play as Dash Rendar and are basically tasked with helping Luke Skywalker rescue Princess Leia from Prince Zizor. The game is mostly a third-person shooter with also some flying and space sections, and it was part of Lucasfilm's broader Shadows of the Empire multimedia project, which encompassed also books and other Star Wars material. This next one is also a bit of a deep cut for younger Star Wars gamers. Star Wars Rebellion is at 21st place from 1998. This one is a real-time strategy game that it's definitely different to a lot of the other 90s themed Star Wars games like X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Dark Forces, Shadows of the Empire. But I think the scale of this game is what sets it apart from so many others. You're basically able to take over the entire galaxy. You play as either the Rebellion or the Galactic Empire, and the objective of the game is to control as many planets and systems as possible so that you have complete domination of the galaxy. Palpatine would be proud.
Wow, for real?
The game has over 200 planets, which is pretty mind-blowing. Can you name 200 planets off the top of your head? I certainly can't. At number 20, we have an iconic Star Wars game that I think really showed the capabilities of what Star Wars gaming could become, especially in the year 1983. This is Star Wars Arcade. This was actually released in the same year as Return of the Jedi. Pretty mind-blowing, thinking that that was that long ago. But the premise of the game was allowing you to play through the Death Star trench run. It had you flying down the trench run, shooting down TIE fighters, dodging cannon fire, and you can imagine that way back in 1983, this would have been pretty mind-blowing, and definitely deserved on this list. Keeping in with the flying theme, at number 19, one that I also think deserves to be on this list, and I think is in a suitable place, is Star Wars Squadrons from 2020, the EA Motive game. This is arguably the best Star Wars space simulator ever created, and was heavily inspired by the X X-Wing and TIE Fighter games from the 1990s, basically bringing what those games built in the 90s to a modern setting. Also, with full VR support and the addition of being able to equip joysticks to fly your ship, I think a lot of people would agree this is definitely one of the most underrated Star Wars games of all time, especially considering what they were able to achieve with the gameplay. Okay, so if that's in 19th place, then from this point forward, I think it's fair to say the list gets a bit strange. A game that I'm not even sure deserves to be on this list, in 18th place, is Star Wars Racer Revenge, which was the sequel to the 1999 Star Wars Racer. Racer Revenge is definitely a lesser version of Star Wars Racer, and I'm sorry if that just crushed your childhood and your sense of nostalgia if you have great nostalgia for this game. It definitely didn't have the same eye-peeling, blistering pace as the first game. And also, I don't think nailed the mechanics and physics of pod racing like the first game did. I'm not sure it belongs on the list, but Rolling Stone have put it here at number 18. Oh my god. Okay, at number 17, we have Star Wars The Force Unleashed, released in 2008. Starkiller is reportedly George Lucas's most hated character because he nerfs Darth Vader. He nerfs everyone. He nerfs the Force. He's too powerful.
No way! No way!
I love The Force Unleashed. It's definitely an overkill Star Wars game. Also, it had a bunch of DLC that I think was so much fun, but here's what is interesting about this being on the list. I'm going to give you a hint of what's coming. The Force Unleashed 2, which released in 2010, is not even included on this list. So just think back. Already they've included games like Racer Revenge, but not The Force Unleashed 2. That's kind of strange. In a lot of ways, I think Force Unleashed 2 is better than Force Unleashed 1. Not in all ways, but maybe that's a hot take as well. Putting this one here and not Force Unleashed 2 on the list, I think, is definitely a hot take. This is gonna get good, guys. We're getting to the juicier end of the list. At number 16, from 2002, we have Star Wars Jedi Starfighter. Now, I think Jedi Starfighter definitely has its place on this list, but considering some of the games that they've left off the list, I'm not sure it deserves to be in 16th place. Let's continue. At number 15, we have, from the year 2000, Star Wars Episode 1, Jedi Power Battles. Now, although this is an iconic Star Wars game and had cool things like Plo Koon using a yellow lightsaber, I'm really not convinced you can put it above games like Star Wars Squadrons, like The Phantom Menace, like Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It certainly has its place in the history of Star Wars gaming, and I think is iconic for many, but the gameplay at times is super frustrating, and is definitely not one of the best reviewed Star Wars games. It's a bit of a cult classic, definitely hasn't aged well, but it's at number 15. At number 14, we have a VR title, Star Wars Vader Immortal. As far as VR Star Wars gaming goes, apart from Star Wars Squadrons, the Starfighter-based experience, Vader Immortal is truly where it's at. And also the fact this is a canon Star Wars story, you're seeing Vader in agony, tormented by the loss of Padme still, trying to reconnect with her through some mysticism and the use of the Force. Also, as far as VR gaming goes, the fact you're able to use a lightsaber in this, pretty mind-blowing, I think. It's definitely the pinnacle of Star Wars VR games, apart from modded games like Blade and Sorcery, and it's truly at times quite an incredible cinematic VR experience. Deserved to be on the list. I'm glad it's here. At number 13, a game I would put much higher on my list is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I'm a bit scared, the fact they've put this one at number 13, wondering what's going to be higher. Jedi Fallen Order, I think, is some of the best Star Wars storytelling Disney have done since acquiring the license in 2012. That and Andor, I put at the top of Star Wars storytelling. There's really nothing like playing this game. And yes, even though at times it feels like a foundational game, like it's setting the building blocks for future games in the franchise, like Jedi Survivor and the third Jedi game, I think the planet's exploration, the Metroidvania style of gameplay, the Souls-like combat, the difficulty levels, the lightsaber customization, the puzzles, solving and exploring the tombs. There was so much to this game that I think makes it so memorable and definitely would be higher on my list. I'm a bit scared from this point. At number 12, I think this one is in a good place. Star Wars Racer from 1999. Definitely one of my favorite childhood games. This was the first ever Star Wars game I played, I believe, and I think it truly captures the experience of pod racing. I really wish we get a modern pod racer game. When they re-released this a few years back, I played so much of it. I completed the game 100%, and it's definitely the definitive Star Wars pod racing game. Yes, it's kind of niche, I guess, in that sense, but as far as Star Wars races go, this game is where it's at. I think 12th place is good for this list. At number 11, also a deserved place, I believe, is Star Wars Empire at War from 2006. Empire at War, I think, is still the pinnacle and the benchmark for a Star Wars real-time strategy game. There are hopes that Lucasfilm are making a modern version of this, but as far as I know, the game still has a strong player base. There are mods that improve the game, improve it visually as well, and it definitely deserves its place on this list. I think a lot of people would put it in the top 10. 11 is close, I guess. Not as controversial as some of the other stuff that is to follow. Okay, we've made it to the top 10. At number 10, we have Star Wars TIE Fighter from 1994. It's interesting they've included TIE Fighter here and not Star Wars X-Wing and not Star Wars X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. While some people believe these games are still the best Star Wars space simulators out there and are still better than Star Wars Squadrons in a lot of ways, TIE Fighter and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter were definitely revolutionary for their time. Just being able to do things like control where your shields and your energy goes in the ship, how much power you're putting to your starfighters' different systems, the sense of scale in the game, the exploration in space. Space was seemingly endless in these games. It felt so vast and broad, and for the 90s, they were really iconic. Here we go with a huge hot take. At number 9, Rolling Stone have put LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga from 2022, and I'm going to go ahead and say this is the only LEGO Star Wars game on this list. They completely left off LEGO Star Wars the video game, LEGO Star Wars 2, LEGO Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars, LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, all of the LEGO games, apart from this one. And we're not going to talk about The Force Awakens, but the Skywalker Saga is the one they've chosen to put on this list. I definitely think the Skywalker Saga deserves to be on this list. Do I think it should be at number 9? I'm not so sure. I'm not sure it really makes the top 10. Yes, I think it does a lot of things other Star Wars games have never done. I love the open world. I love the space and the sheer amount of characters in the game, but it wasn't really revolutionary as LEGO Star Wars the video game or LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga. They have so much on this game because they were the first to do it, and the fact they're completely omitted from this list is completely absurd. I love all the LEGO Star Wars games. I do love the Skywalker Saga, but I don't think it has a place on this list above the Complete Saga. That is ridiculous. Considering the impact the Complete Saga had, considering the impact all of those LEGO games from the mid-2000s had, they set the standard for what LEGO Star Wars video gaming was. LEGO Star Wars the video game was the first LEGO game created by TT Games in this style, and I can't believe it doesn't even make the list. So what have they put in the top 10 apart from this then? Well, at number 8, we have Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords. KOTOR 2 definitely deserves to be on this list. Really glad it's here. And don't worry, the other KOTOR is on the list as well. We'll get to that in a bit. But as far as Star Wars RPGs go, these are still where it's at. At number 7, we have Super Star Wars from 1992. Kind of controversial. I think that they put it at number 7. Yes, I guess at the time it was quite revolutionary. A side-scrolling Star Wars experience with some incredibly difficult platforming sections. This is the type of game that can certainly break you. Does it deserve to be in number 7 on the list? I'm not so sure. At number 6, I think this one is placed quite well. I might still put it higher on my list, but we have Star Wars Battlefront 2 from 2005. Now, this is the only Battlefront game on this entire list. So they've left off Battlefront 1 from 2004 and both of EA's Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 from 2015 and 2017, which I also think is completely absurd. How does Battlefront 2 from 2017 not even make this list? Especially considering how the developers brought that game back to life with an abundance of content after the controversial launch. EA's Battlefront 2 is easily the best multiplayer Star Wars shooter ever created. Hands down, I think. Especially with modern graphics in a modern environment. Of course, Battlefront 2 from 2005 is iconic Star Wars game. I'd probably put it in my top 3. But how is it the only Battlefront on this list? I have no idea. Even Battlefront 1 from 2004, I think deserves a place on this list because it was the first game to do it. It was the first Battlefront. That's iconic in itself. And yes, it might not be the best Battlefront. I think it still deserves to be on this list, especially over some of the other games mentioned, like Star Wars Racer Revenge. You're putting Racer Revenge on the list, but not Battlefront 1. At number 5, we have Star Wars Jedi Survivor from 2023. I'm going to talk about this one first, but I know the next game on the list is going to crack all of you. The fact they're putting Jedi Survivor at number 5, I think deserves its place. I think this is Yes, a top 5 Star Wars game in my opinion. I think I'd put Jedi Fallen Order way up there as well. Jedi Survivor definitely built on what Fallen Order did as well and was heartbreaking in so many ways. They expanded on the scale of the worlds, they expanded on combat specifically with the different stances, revolutionary. I guess building on what the Jedi Knight games established with lightsaber gameplay in the early 2000s, instead making it more Souls-like of course. I think Jedi Fallen Order's worlds and kind of environments are a lot more memorable, and even the story in some ways is a lot more memorable, especially with meeting Darth Vader at the end, than Jedi Survivor, but I'm still glad Survivor's here. Definitely a top Star Wars game. Great storytelling, great gameplay, love it. Okay. Biggest bombshell of the video, guys. At number 4, I can't even say it, oh my goodness. At number 4, Rolling Stone have put Star Wars Outlaws. Do I need to say anything here? Do I need to say anything? This whole video is a joke. This whole list is absurd. How can you put Star Wars Outlaws as the number 4 Star Wars game?
Are you serious?
I think Star Wars Outlaws is definitely gonna be a bit of a sleeper hit. I think the game received a lot of criticism. It didn't fully deserve at times, and I think was treated rather harshly for fair reasons at times, but a lot of it I think was blown out of proportion. I think a lot of people overlooked what they did building the worlds here and the scale, the scope of the game, exploring open worlds, some of the ship gameplay, the combat is, yes, a bit rough at times. I don't like the idea of punching stormtroopers with my bare fists, and even though I had a good time with this game, it's definitely rough around the edges, and I definitely don't think deserves to be number 4 on a list of 25 best Star Wars games of all time. Are you kidding me? Over Jedi Survivor, over Battlefront 2, over Jedi Fallen Order, over even like KOTOR 2, of course, over Empire at War, over any Lego Star Wars game, over Star Wars Racer, over Star Wars Bounty Hunter. There's so many games I could list on this list. Even Squadrons, I don't know, man. Force Unleashed, I don't know. A lot of people would believe that Star Wars Outlaws doesn't even deserve to be on the list at all. I'm not sure I fully agree with that. But I don't think I'm not sure I'd even put it in my top 10, if I'm totally honest. So, there it is. Number 4, Star Wars Outlaws. Whoa, okay. Okay. At number 3, we're restoring a bit of order here. We have, from 2002, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. Some would argue that Jedi Academy is the better of these games. It's strange that this is the only Jedi Knight game they've decided to include on this list. These games were the best third-person lightsaber-wielding games from the 2000s, and at the time were pretty groundbreaking, but I'm not sure I'd put Jedi Outcast in my top 3. That's another hot take. Okay, at number 2, we have Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader from 2001. Once again, this is the only Rogue Squadron game they've put on this list, and I think a lot of people would agree Rogue Squadron 2 is the best of the 3 Rogue Squadron games, but I don't really think it deserves to be on this list over the others as well, and I definitely don't think it deserves to be in second place. That's my personal opinion. I know some people would disagree with that. They think this game is well deserved of its second place. Here it is. They've put Rogue Leader as number 2 on the list, which means number 1, deservedly so, at least they got this right, guys, is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I think so many people would agree that KOTOR is the greatest Star Wars game ever made for its storytelling capabilities, for its RPG-style gameplay, but there it is, number 1 on the list. So, for some reason, Rolling Stone have left out an abundance of memorable, iconic Star Wars games that didn't even make the list. How can you try and be a gaming magazine? And I know this is all an opinion, and yes, it's the official Rolling Stone list though, that's why I'm upset. Where is Dark Forces? Where are the other Lego Star Wars games? Where are the EA Battlefront games? Where is The Force Unleashed 2? Where is Star Wars X-Wing? Where are the other Rogue Squadron games? Where is Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds? An iconic game I know a lot of people still play to this day. Where is Star Wars The Clone Wars even? Where's Elite Squadron? Renegade Squadron? Jedi Academy's not here, Dark Forces 2 isn't here, Republic Commando isn't on the list. Oh, the more games I realize aren't on the list, the more insane I feel like I'm going. The Revenge of the Sith video game also didn't make the cut. If you're not triggered by this list, then okay guys, let me know what game you were surprised about on this list and what game you'd want to see as the number 1 spot. Let me know if you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching this. I'm going to go try and recover after the trauma I've experienced reading this list. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, watch this video here for more Star Wars, and my name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon. I need to go and cry now. Oh.